Captain Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of the New Seoul, watching the stars stretch into lines as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The diplomatic vessel shuddered slightly as it returned to normal space near Kepler Station. Lee Hyun had made this journey dozens of times over the past 5 years. Trade talks, cultural exchanges, peace negotiations. This was what humans did best in the galaxy. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from Kepler Station," said Communications Officer Yang Soo-bin, her young face creased with worry. She had only been assigned to the New Seoul 6 months ago, fresh from the academy on Earth. This was supposed to be a routine mission to help the Draknari and Vorthak settle a mining dispute. Lee Hyun frowned. Distress signals were rare in Federation space. The galaxy had been peaceful for over 200 years, ever since the various alien races had formed their alliance. Humans had joined 50 years ago, quickly becoming known as the mediators and peacekeepers. Where other species saw conflict, humans saw solutions. "Put it through!" Lee Hyun ordered. The view screen crackled to life, showing the desperate face of Station Commander Vextar, a blue-skinned Vorthak with large black eyes. Behind him, sparks flew from damaged equipment, and alien voices shouted, "In panic! Any Federation ship, please respond! Kepler Station is under attack! Unknown vessels! They came out of nowhere, demanding surrender." The transmission cut to static. Dr. Park Mina, the ship's chief xenobiologist and cultural expert, stepped up beside Lee Hyun. She was a small woman with graying hair, but her eyes were sharp with intelligence. "Captain, this doesn't make sense. Who would attack a Federation station? The Draknari haven't fought anyone in decades, and the Vorthak are completely peaceful." Lee Hyun nodded. It was true. The galaxy was more peaceful now than it had ever been. The Federation included over 40 different species, all working together for trade and mutual benefit. Wars were things of the past, settled by diplomacy and negotiation. That was why humans were so valuable. They were natural diplomats, always, finding ways to make different species understand each other. "Take us closer, but keep our distance," Lee Hyun ordered the helmsman. "And get me a scan of the system." As the New Seoul moved forward, the scene that appeared on their screens made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Kepler Station, a massive trading hub that housed over 50,000 beings from a dozen different species, was surrounded by dark, angular ships, unlike anything in Federation records. These vessels were black as space itself, with sharp edges that seemed to cut through the starlight. 3 Federation ships floated nearby, their hulls torn open and venting atmosphere into the void. Lee Hyun recognized one of them, the Draknari heavy cruiser Blood Honor. The Draknari were supposed to be the warriors of the Federation, though they hadn't fought a real war in living memory. Their ship had been cut apart like paper. "Captain, I'm detecting over 200 unknown vessels," reported the sensor officer. "They're surrounding the station completely." "Any response to our hails?" Lee Hyun asked. "Nothing, sir. But—" Yang Soo-bin hesitated. "I think they know we're here." As if summoned by her words, one of the black ships turned toward them. It was massive, easily 3 times the size of the New Seoul. Its hull was smooth except for weapon ports that glowed with an angry red light. The communications board suddenly came alive with an incoming signal. Lee Hyun nodded to Jang Soo-bin, who opened the channel. The face that appeared on the screen was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was humanoid, but wrong in every way that mattered. Gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones, eyes that glowed, like red coals, and a mouth full of pointed teeth. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. "Federation vessel, I am War Leader Krexthul of the Hegemony. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." Lee Hyun stepped forward, drawing on 50 years of human diplomatic training. Humans had solved conflicts between the proud Draknari and the logical Vorthak. They had negotiated peace between species that had been enemies for thousands of years. Surely they could find a way to talk to these newcomers? I am Captain Lee Hyun of the Federation vessel New Seoul. We're here on a diplomatic mission. Perhaps we can discuss whatever concerns you have with the Federation. I'm sure we can find a solution that works for everyone. The creature on the screen tilted its head as if Lee Hyun had said something amusing. Solution? The solution is simple, human. Surrender or die. Your Federation is weak. Your species are soft. The hegemony will rule this galaxy, as is our right. Dr. Park Mina stepped forward. We don't understand. What do you want? Resources? Territory? We can negotiate. You understand nothing, Krexthul snarled. Watch and learn what happens to those who refuse the hegemony. The transmission cut off. For a moment, the bridge was silent except for the hum of the ship's systems. Then space exploded with light. The alien ships opened fire on the 3 remaining Federation vessels near the station. Not the clean energy beams that Federation ships used, but weapons that seemed to tear holes in reality itself. The ships didn't just explode. They were unmade, reduced to scattered atoms in seconds. Lee Hyun felt his stomach drop. In 50 years of galactic peace, he had never seen such destruction. Federation weapons were designed to disable, not destroy. These aliens fought like they wanted to erase their enemies from existence. Captain, the helmsman said, his voice tight with fear, they're targeting us. The black ships were turning toward the New Seoul, their weapon ports glowing brighter. Lee Hyun knew his ship was not designed for combat. Like all human vessels, it was built for exploration, diplomacy, and trade. Its shields were minimal, its weapons barely adequate for self-defense against pirates or asteroids. All power to engines, Lee Hyun ordered. Get us out of here, now! The New Seoul leaped forward as the engines engaged at maximum power. Behind them, red beams of energy sliced through the space where they had been seconds before. The ship shuddered as the edge of one beam clipped their rear shields. Hull breach on Deck 7, Dr. Park Mina reported, reading from a damage control station. Emergency bulkheads are holding. Jump to hyperspace the moment we clear the gravity well, Lee Hyun ordered. Jang Soo-bin worked frantically at her station. Captain, I'm receiving a final transmission from Kepler Station. Put it through. Commander Vextar appeared on screen. One last time, his station's command center now filled with smoke and the glow of fires. To any Federation vessel receiving this, the hegemony has demanded total surrender of all Federation worlds. They say they will destroy any species that resists. Tell the Council. Tell them we fought. The transmission ended as the A. Station's lights went dark. The New Seoul finally reached safe distance and jumped to hyperspace, leaving Kepler Station and its 50,000 inhabitants to their fate. As the stars shifted around them, Lee Hyun stared at the view screen and wondered what this meant for the galaxy. For 50 years, humans had been the peacemakers, the diplomats, the gentle giants who solved problems with words instead of weapons. But what happened when words weren't enough? What happened when the other side didn't want to talk? As the ship raced toward Earth with news of this new threat, Lee Hyun couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The age of peace was ending, and he wasn't sure if humanity, or anyone else in the Federation, was ready for what came next. Behind them, in the Kepler system, the hegemony began the systematic destruction of everything the Federation had built, sending a clear message to the galaxy: surrender or be destroyed. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood in the emergency council chamber deep beneath Earth's capital city of New Geneva. The room was filled with the most important people in human space: politicians, scientists, and military leaders. But today, their faces showed something Kim had rarely seen in his 40 years of service: fear. The holographic display in the center of the room showed the last transmission from Kepler Station. The images of destruction played over and over. Federation ships torn apart, the station going dark, 50,000 lives snuffed out in minutes. Around the table, representatives from a dozen alien species watched in horror. "The hegemony fleet is moving toward the Altair system," reported the Draknari ambassador, his warrior's pride clearly shaken. "Our ships there are requesting immediate evacuation orders." Kim felt a bitter taste in his mouth. The mighty Draknari, who boasted of their warrior heritage, were already talking about running away, but he couldn't blame them. Their warrior culture was mostly ceremonial now. They hadn't fought a real war in over 2 centuries. The Vorthak representative, a tall being with pale blue skin, spoke next. "Our analysis shows the hegemony weapons are unlike anything in our databases. Our shields cannot stop them. Our weapons cannot penetrate their hulls." Her voice was flat, emotionless in the way of her species, but Kim could hear the defeat in it. "What about the other Federation fleets?" asked Dr. Park Mina, who had returned with Captain Lee Hyun aboard the New Soul. She sat at the far end of the table, still wearing her ship's uniform, her face tired from the long journey back to Earth. "The Quelon merchant fleet has already fled to the Outer Rim," Kim replied. "The Zephyrian Defense Force is requesting permission to withdraw to their home systems. The Crystalline Collective is considering their options." What he didn't say was that considering their options meant the crystalline beings were already negotiating with the hegemony. The peaceful galaxy the Federation had built was crumbling at the first sign of real violence. "So what do we do?" asked Captain Lee Hyun. "We can't fight them. Human ships are designed for exploration and diplomacy, not war." Kim looked around the table at the faces of Earth's leaders and their alien allies. They were all waiting for someone else to come up with a solution. The humans, as always, were expected to find a way to make peace, but this time, peace wasn't an option. "The meeting is dismissed," Kim said suddenly. "Alien representatives, please return to your ships. We'll contact you within 6 hours with our response." The aliens filed out, their conversations quiet and worried. When the room was empty except for humans, Kim touched a control on the table. Heavy metal doors slid shut with a soft hiss. Red lights appeared around the room, indicating that the chamber was now sealed and secure. "Director Cho, activate Protocol 7, Kim said. An elderly woman at the far end of the table nodded and pressed her palm against a scanner. Director Cho Yun-ji ran Earth's historical archives, though few people knew what that really meant. As the scanner accepted her print, hidden panels in the walls slid open, revealing screens and displays that had been dark for 50 years. "What's going on?" Dr. Park Mina asked, looking around at the suddenly transformed room. "Tell her," Kim said to Director Cho. The old woman stood up slowly, her eyes sad but determined. "Dr. Park, what do you know about human history before we joined the Federation?" "The same as everyone, I suppose. We were a peaceful species that developed space travel through scientific cooperation. We explored our solar system, made contact with the Federation, and joined as diplomats and mediators. That's what we told the galaxy," Director Cho said. "It's what we wanted them to believe, but it's not the truth." She pressed another control, and the wall screens came alive with images that made Dr. Park gasp. Ancient battles with swords and spears, massive armies clashing across blood-soaked fields, cities burning, ships with guns destroying other ships, explosions that could level mountains. "This is human history," Director Cho continued. 5,000 years of almost constant warfare. We didn't develop space travel through peaceful cooperation. We developed it because we needed better ways to kill each other. More images flashed across the screens. Rockets designed as weapons. Nuclear explosions that could destroy entire cities. Soldiers in advanced armor carrying weapons that could cut through steel. The Federation races had no concept of real war, Kim explained. They'd had conflicts, sure, but nothing like what humans had done to each other for millennia. When we made first contact, we realized that showing them our true nature would terrify them. So we created a lie. Dr. Park Mina stared at the images, her face pale. "But Our ships, our technology, it's all designed for peace. No, said a new voice from the doorway. General Bei Wan-sik entered the room, wearing a uniform that Dr. Park had never seen before. It was black with silver markings, clearly military but unlike anything in the Federation databases. Our civilian ships are designed for peace. Our military ships are designed for war. Military ships? Dr. Park repeated. We don't have a military. The Federation handles all defense. General Bei smiled grimly. The Federation handles defense against pirates and accidents. We handle defense against real threats. He gestured to the screens around the room. For 50 years, we've been preparing for this day. The day when someone with real weapons came calling. Prepare how? Captain Lee Hyun asked. Show them, Kim ordered. The screens changed again. This time they showed images that looked like science fiction. Massive ships bristling with weapons. Orbital platforms around Earth that looked more like fortresses than research stations. Factories on Mars producing sleek fighters and battle cruisers. Bases on the moons of Jupiter, where humans in military uniforms trained with weapons that seemed decades ahead of Federation technology. Earth has a population of 12 billion people, General Bei explained. What the Federation doesn't know is that over 100 million of them are trained military personnel. Our mining operations on Mars are weapons factories. Our research stations throughout the solar system are military bases. Every human ship has hidden weapon systems that can be activated in minutes. Dr. Park Mina sat down heavily in her chair. This is impossible. How did you hide all of this? Humans are very good at keeping secrets, Director Cho said. It's another skill we learned during our wars. The Federation sees what we want them to see. Kim stood up and walked to the main display. For 50 years, we've played the role of peaceful diplomats. But we've also been preparing for the day when diplomacy wouldn't be enough. The hegemony has given us that day. What about the other Federation species? Dr. Park asked. What happens when they find out we've been lying to them? They'll be angry, Kim admitted. They'll feel betrayed, but they'll also be alive. The hegemony doesn't want to negotiate or coexist. They want to conquer and destroy. The only language they understand is force. General Bei walked to the window that looked out over New Geneva. In the distance, Dr. Park could see what she had always thought were civilian transport ships rising from spaceports. Now she wondered what they really were. We're activating protocol. Red Sun, the general announced. Every human ship in Federation space will receive new orders within the hour. The age of human diplomacy is over. The age of human warfare has begun. Kim turned to Captain Lee Hyun. Captain, you're no longer commanding a diplomatic vessel. The new Soul will be refitted with military systems and weapons. You'll return to Federation space, but not as a peacekeeper. What will I be? Lee Hyun asked. Kim's face was grim, but determined. A soldier. Like every other human in the galaxy, you're going to remember what our species does best. As if summoned by his words, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. The screens showed human ships across the galaxy beginning their transformation from peaceful explorers to instruments of war. The galaxy was about to learn what humans had hidden for 50 years. They weren't gentle giants who solved problems with words. They were the most dangerous predators the universe had ever produced, and they had been pretending to be sheep while building an arsenal that could shake the stars themselves. The transformation began at exactly 1430 Universal Time. Across the galaxy, human ships that had spent decades as peaceful traders and diplomatic vessels suddenly changed. Hidden compartments opened to reveal weapon systems. Cargo holds reorganized themselves into military configurations. Ships that looked like harmless explorers became predators in minutes. Captain Lee Hyun watched from the bridge of the new Soul as his crew worked with mechanical precision. They moved like they had done this 1,000 times before, though this was the first time the ship had ever revealed its true nature. Hidden panels slid away to show targeting computers. The communications array reconfigured itself into a military command center. Most shocking of all, the ship's peaceful white hull began to change color as active camouflage systems activated, turning it a dark gray that seemed to absorb light. "Weapons systems online," reported Lieutenant Han Ji-woo, the ship's new tactical officer. She had appeared on the bridge wearing the same black uniform as General Bay, though Lee Hyun had never seen her before in his life. "Plasma cannons charging, missile pods loaded, point defense systems active." "Where did you come from?" Dr. Park Mina asked, staring at the young woman who looked barely old enough to have graduated from any academy. Han Ji-woo smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. "I've been aboard this ship for 3 years, Doctor. I was listed as a maintenance technician in the ship's records. But my real job was to wait for this day." Lee Hyun realized that half his crew had been replaced by people in military uniforms. They moved with the confidence of trained soldiers, not the careful politeness of diplomats. These weren't new additions to his crew. They had been there all along, hiding in plain sight. "Captain," came a voice over the ship's communication system. "This is Admiral Kim Dae-ho. All human vessels are to proceed immediately to Federation. Space. The hegemony fleet is moving toward the Altair system. You will engage and destroy all enemy forces." Lee Hyun felt his stomach clench. "Engage and destroy?" He looked around at his transformed bridge. "We're not warriors. We're diplomats." "Not anymore," Han Ji-woo said simply. "Today, we remember what humans were before we became peacekeepers." The new Soul jumped to hyperspace along with dozens of other human ships. What had once been a small diplomatic fleet was now revealed as a military task force. As they traveled, Lee Hyun received briefings that made his head spin. Human combat doctrine. Battle strategies developed over centuries of warfare. Weapon specifications for systems he had never known existed. "This is impossible," Dr. Park Mina said, reading over tactical reports. "These strategies, they're brilliant, but they're also terrifying. Some of these tactics involve sacrificing entire ships to achieve victory." "Humans have always been willing to die for victory," Han Ji-woo explained. "It's what made us the most dangerous species on Earth. We never surrendered, never gave up, never stopped fighting until we won or died trying." When they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Altair system, Lee Hyun saw something that made him understand why the Federation had been so easily defeated. The hegemony fleet was massive. Over 500 black ships arranged in perfect military formation. But what struck him most was how they moved, like predators, confident and aggressive, assuming that nothing could challenge them. The Federation forces in the system were already retreating. Draknari heavy cruisers, supposedly the most powerful ships in the galaxy, fled from the approaching enemy. Vorthak exploration vessels scattered like frightened animals. Even the massive Quellan trade ships, built like mobile cities, were running for the outer system. Federation vessels, "This is Admiral Kim Dae-ho aboard the UFS Retribution," came a transmission on all frequencies. "All alien ships are ordered to withdraw beyond the 4th planet. Human forces will handle this engagement." Lee Hyun watched his displays as human ships moved into formation. They were outnumbered nearly 10 to 1, but they moved with a precision that was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Ships that had pretended to be peaceful traders now revealed themselves as destroyers, cruisers, and dreadnoughts that looked like they could crack planets. "Unknown human vessels," came a transmission from the hegemony fleet. "I am War Leader, Krexthul. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed like the other weaklings in this galaxy." Admiral Kim's response was broadcast on all channels so every Federation ship could hear it. "War Leader Krexthul, this is Admiral Kim Dae-ho of the Human Defense Force. You have attacked Federation civilians and destroyed peaceful installations. In the name of humanity and our allies, I sentence you and your fleet to death." The silence that followed lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then the human fleet opened fire. Lee Hyun had never seen weapons like the ones his species had built in secret. Plasma beams that could slice through ship hulls like paper, missiles that could track targets across light minutes of space. Energy. Torpedoes that seemed to bend space itself. The human ships fired with coordination that suggested they had trained for this battle for decades. The hegemony fleet, caught completely off guard, tried to respond. Their dark ships turned to engage, their red energy weapons charging. But the humans had already anticipated their movements. Human fighters, so small they barely registered on sensors, swarmed between the enemy ships like angry insects. Their pilots flew with a reckless skill that made Lee Hyun's hands shake just watching. How are they doing that? Dr. Park Mina gasped, watching a human fighter dodge between enemy fire beams that should have vaporized it instantly. Fighter pilot training includes studying every aerial combat technique in human history, Han Ji-woo explained, watching her tactical displays with professional interest. These pilots know maneuvers developed by fighter aces from a dozen different wars. The enemy has never seen anything like human combat flying. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, the hegemony fleet had been completely destroyed. Not defeated, destroyed. Human forces had shown no mercy, no quarter, no hesitation. Ships that tried to surrender were told that surrender was not accepted. Ships that tried to flee were hunted down and eliminated. As the last enemy vessel exploded, Lee Hyun realized that every Federation ship in the system had watched the entire battle. They had seen their peaceful human allies transform into something that fought with cold, calculated brutality. Federation vessels, Admiral Kim broadcast. The threat to Altair system has been eliminated. You may resume normal operations. The response from the Federation ships was telling. Instead of gratitude, there was fear. The Draknari commander's voice shook as he acknowledged the transmission. The Vorthak captain's normally emotionless tone carried an edge of worry. Even the Kelon merchants, normally chatty and friendly, responded with formal, careful words. Doctor. Park Mina watched the tactical displays showing the debris of 500 enemy ships spread across space. They're afraid of us now, she said quietly. Good, Han Ji-woo replied. Fear will keep them alive. The hegemony respected nothing but strength. Now they know we have more strength than anyone in the galaxy. But at what cost? Lee Hyun asked. The Federation trusted us. We were their friends, their mediators, their peacekeepers. Now they've seen what we really are. Han Ji-woo turned to look at him, her young face serious. Captain, friendship is a luxury we can afford only when everyone wants peace. The hegemony doesn't want peace. They want conquest. The only way to protect our friends is to be more dangerous than their enemies. As the human fleet regrouped and prepared to move to the next system under threat, Lee Hyun realized that everything had changed. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. They were no longer the gentle giants who solved problems with words. They were the species that had turned warfare into an art form, and they had just reminded the universe why Earth's children were the most dangerous creatures among the stars. Behind them, Federation ships slowly approached the debris field, trying to understand how their peaceful allies had become such terrifying warriors in the space of a single day. General Bae Won-sik stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's surface, watching holographic displays that showed the entire galaxy. Red markers indicated hegemony forces, blue showed Federation worlds, and green represented human military assets. 3 weeks ago, the map had been mostly red with small patches of blue. Now, green markers were pushing back the red tide across dozens of star systems. Report, General Bae ordered as Admiral Kim Dae-ho entered the room. The hegemony's advance has been stopped on all fronts, Kim replied, his uniform still bearing scorch marks from a recent battle. Their fleet at Vega was destroyed yesterday. The force threatening the Centauri colonies surrendered after we demonstrated our new orbital bombardment systems. Surrendered? General Bay raised an eyebrow. I thought the hegemony didn't believe in surrender. They're learning, Kim said grimly. Intelligence Officer Jang Subin's Psychological Warfare Division has been broadcasting recordings of our battles throughout their territory. When you show someone a 1,000-ship fleet being destroyed in 30 minutes, they start to reconsider their options. General Bay nodded and turned to the massive display showing Earth's solar system. What had once looked like a peaceful collection of research stations and mining facilities now revealed its true nature. Orbital weapons platforms surrounded every planet. Mars showed the massive shipyards that had been disguised as mining operations. The asteroid belt bristled with hidden military bases. Even Earth's moon had opened launch bays that released endless streams of fighters and warships. The Federation Council is requesting another meeting, Director Cho Yunji said as she entered the room. The elderly woman looked tired but satisfied. They want to discuss our new military capabilities. Let me guess, General Bay said. They're concerned about human expansion of military forces. Concerned is putting it mildly, Director Cho replied. The Draknari are calling it a betrayal of Federation principles. The Vorthak are demanding a full accounting of our hidden weapons. Even the Quelon merchants are worried about what this means for galactic trade. General Bay activated a new display showing Federation worlds. Yellow indicators marked planets where local governments were expressing concern about human military presence. Orange showed worlds where anti-human protests were taking place. Red indicated systems where Federation species were actively opposing human forces. They're afraid, Admiral Kim observed. 50 years of believing we were peaceful, and now they've seen us destroy the most powerful enemy the galaxy has ever faced. Fear is a reasonable response, General Bay said. What matters is whether they're more afraid of us or of the hegemony. His question was answered when alarms began sounding throughout the facility. A communications officer rushed into the room, her face pale with urgency. Sir, we're receiving priority transmissions from the outer sensor networks. The hegemony is launching a massive counterattack. Over 10,000 ships are moving toward the Sol system. The room fell silent. 10,000 ships was more than the entire combined Federation fleet. It was twice the size of any force the hegemony had used before. They're trying to cut off the head, Admiral Kim realized. Destroy Earth, and human resistance collapses. General Bay smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Let them come. It's time to show the galaxy what Earth's real defenses look like. The next 6 hours were a carefully orchestrated dance of preparation. Human fleets that had been scattered across the galaxy began converging on Earth. Space stations that had pretended to be research facilities powered up weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets. The orbital platforms around Earth revealed themselves as massive fortress stations, each one equipped with enough firepower to level continents. Captain Lee Hyun, now commanding a task force of 12 ships, received his orders while patrolling the outer system. All units, return to Earth immediately. The enemy is coming to us. As his ships turned toward home, Lee Hyun found Dr. Park Mina on the bridge of the New Sol. She was studying reports from across the galaxy, her face troubled. The Federation species are pulling back their support, she told him. The Draknari have recalled their ships to their home systems. The Vorthak are declaring neutrality. Even our oldest allies are abandoning us. Can you blame them? Lee Hyun asked. We lied to them for 50 years. They thought they knew us, and now they've seen what we really are. Dr. Park looked at the tactical displays showing the approaching hegemony fleet. What we really are might be the only thing that saves them. The hegemony fleet arrived in the Sol system like a dark tide. 10,000 ships, each one a masterpiece of destructive technology. Their formation stretched across space, so vast that it blocked out stars. At their head flew the flagship of the Hegemony Supreme Commander, a vessel so large it had its own gravity field. "Citizens of Earth," came a transmission broadcast across all frequencies. "I am Supreme Commander Morthak of the Hegemony. You have interfered with our rightful conquest of this galaxy. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. The Response came from Admiral Kim, broadcasting from the command ship Retribution. "Supreme Commander Morthak, this is Admiral Kim Dae-ho of the Human Defense Force. You have made a mistake coming here. This is our home, and humans protect their home." What happened next would be remembered as the Battle of Sol, the largest HFY space engagement in galactic history. But it wasn't really a battle, it was a demonstration. The Hegemony fleet attacked with confidence, expecting to overwhelm Earth's defenses through sheer numbers. They had not expected the Sol system to be the most heavily fortified location in the galaxy. Hidden weapons platforms throughout the system opened fire simultaneously. Orbital bombardment stations revealed themselves on every planet and moon. The asteroid belt itself seemed to come alive as camouflaged battle stations activated. Even the outer planets launched swarms of automated defense drones that had been waiting in the darkness for decades. The Hegemony fleet found itself caught in a crossfire that came from every direction. Weapons struck them from the inner system, the outer system, and from angles they hadn't known were possible. Human ships appeared from behind planets and asteroids, using the system's gravity wells and debris fields like a three-dimensional maze designed for warfare. Lieutenant Han Ji-woo, now promoted to commander, led a squadron of fighters through the enemy formation. Her pilots used tactics that seemed impossible, flying through debris fields at full speed, using asteroid gravity to slingshot around enemy ships, coordinating attacks across light minutes of space with precision that suggested telepathy. "How are they doing this?" came panicked transmissions from Hegemony ships. "They're everywhere at once." The answer was simple. Humans had spent 50 years preparing for this exact battle. Every asteroid had been mapped. Every gravitational field had been calculated. Every possible attack vector had been planned and practiced. The Sol system wasn't just humanity's home. It was the ultimate expression of human military engineering. The battle lasted 14 hours. When it ended, the Hegemony fleet had been completely destroyed. Not a single enemy ship escaped to carry word back to their empire. The wreckage of 10,000 vessels drifted through the Sol system like a monument to the price of threatening Earth. But the real victory wasn't military. It was psychological. The battle had been broadcast throughout the galaxy by Jiang Subin's intelligence division. Every Federation world, every neutral system, every Hegemony colony had watched Earth defend itself against impossible odds and win decisively. "The Hegemony is requesting peace negotiations," reported a communications officer, her voice filled with disbelief. General Bay looked at the tactical displays showing the debris of the enemy fleet. "After 50 years of lying about who we are, the galaxy finally knows the truth. We're not the gentle giants they thought we were. We're the species that turned warfare into science, and we just reminded the universe why Earth's children don't lose." Admiral Kim nodded grimly. "The question now is what we do with that knowledge. Do we use this power to protect the galaxy, or do we use it to rule it?" As rescue ships moved through the debris field to search for survivors, humanity faced a choice that would define their place in the galaxy forever. They had revealed their true nature to protect their friends. But in doing so, they had become something that even their allies feared. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, Admiral Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of the UFS Harmony, humanity's new flagship. Through the viewport, he could see a sight that would have been impossible a year ago: human and alien ships flying together, in perfect formation. Draknari heavy cruisers moved alongside human destroyers. Vorthak science vessels shared data with human intelligence ships. Even Quellan traders had modified their vessels with human-designed defensive systems. The war with The hegemony was over. What remained was the harder task of building peace. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Kepler Station Reconstruction Project," reported Communications Officer Jang Subin, now wearing the insignia of a full commander. "They're requesting permission to begin Phase 3 of the rebuilding." Lee Hyun nodded. Kepler Station, where this all began, was being rebuilt as a symbol of the new galaxy. But this time it would be more than a trading post. It would be a fortress that could defend itself against any threat. Permission granted, and remind them that the new defense platforms need to be completed before the civilian sections come online. Dr. Park Mina, now serving as Director of Interspecies Relations, approached with a datapad in her hands. "Admiral, I have the weekly reports from the integration teams. The results are mixed." Lee Hyun sighed. Integration was the polite word they used for the process of teaching other Federation species how to defend themselves. It was proving more difficult than winning the war had been. "Show me," he said. Dr. Park activated a holographic display showing Federation space. Green indicators marked worlds where the integration process was going well. Yellow showed systems with problems. Red indicated serious resistance to human military advisors. "The Vorthak are adapting quickly," Dr. Park explained. "Their logical minds accept the necessity of military preparation, even if they don't like it. The Quellan are also cooperating. They understand that protection is good for business." "And the problems?" Lee Hyun asked, though he already knew the answer. "The Draknari are the biggest issue. They're proud of their warrior heritage, but they're also embarrassed that humans prove to be better fighters. Some of their colonies are refusing to accept human military advisors." As if summoned by their conversation, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Lee Hyun's tactical officer, Commander Han Ji-woo, looked up from her displays with a grim expression. "Admiral, we're receiving a distress call from the Draknari colony of Vorvac Prime. They're reporting an armed rebellion against the planetary government." Lee Hyun felt his stomach tighten. This was what they had been afraid of. Federation species turning against each other instead of working together. Details: a group calling itself the True Warriors of Draknari has seized control of 3 cities. They're demanding the removal of all human military advisors and the restoration of traditional Draknari independence. Dr. Park shook her head sadly. They still don't understand. Independence is a luxury no one in this galaxy can afford anymore. The hegemony proved that isolated worlds are defenseless worlds. "Set course for Vorvac Prime," Lee Hyun ordered, "and get me a direct line to General Bae-Won-sik on Earth." As the Harmony jumped to hyperspace, Lee Hyun found himself thinking about the choices that had brought them to this point. After the Battle of Sol, humanity could have done anything. They could have demanded tribute from every world in the galaxy. They could have declared themselves the rulers of Federation space. They could have become the very thing they had just defeated. Instead, they had chosen a harder path. General Bae had announced the Sol Doctrine, humanity's promise to protect the galaxy while helping other species protect themselves. It was the most difficult choice they could have made, because it required them to be both strong enough to enforce peace and wise enough not to abuse that strength. When they arrived at Vorvac Prime, the situation was worse than the reports had indicated. The Draknari rebels had not only seized cities, but they had also captured several human advisors. Worse, they were broadcasting messages throughout Draknari space, calling for all colonies to rise up against human occupation. "Admiral," came a transmission from the planet's surface. "This is Warlord Krexval of the True Warriors. We demand that all human forces leave Draknari space immediately. We are warriors, not children who need protection." Lee Hyun looked at his bridge crew. They were all young, all human, all veterans of the war against the hegemony. They had seen what happened to species that couldn't defend themselves. They knew what would happen to the Draknari if they were left alone when the next threat appeared. "Warlord Krexval," Lee Hyun replied. This is Admiral Lee Hyun of the Human Defense Force. You have three options. First, you can release our personnel and return to peaceful negotiations. Second, you can continue this rebellion and force us to remove you. Third, you can declare independence and defend yourselves when the next enemy arrives. The silence that followed lasted almost a full minute. When Krexval responded, his voice was filled with the kind of pride that had nearly destroyed his species once before. We choose independence, human. We are Draknari. We bow to no one. Lee Hyun exchanged glances with Dr. Park, who nodded sadly. They had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but they had prepared for it. Commander Han, begin the demonstration, Lee Hyun ordered. What happened next was carefully planned to be impressive without being destructive. Human ships in orbit around Vorvak Prime activated their weapon systems, but instead of firing at the planet, they targeted 3 large asteroids in the outer system. The weapons that had destroyed hegemony fleets turned the asteroids into glowing clouds of dust in seconds. Warlord Krexval, Lee Hyun broadcast. Those asteroids were the same size as your largest cities. This is what we can do when we want to destroy something. But we don't want to destroy anything. We want to protect everything. The second part of the demonstration was more subtle, but more important. Human ships throughout the system suddenly seemed to multiply. Stealth ships that had been hidden revealed themselves. Defense platforms that looked like space debris activated their systems. What had appeared to be a small human fleet was actually a massive defensive network. This is what protection looks like, Dr. Park added to the transmission. Every human colony, every Federation world, every allied system has defenses like these. When the next threat comes, and there will be a next threat, our worlds will survive. Yours will not. The rebellion on Vorvak Prime collapsed within hours. Faced with the reality of what independence actually meant, the Draknari rebels surrendered. But more importantly, they finally understood what the humans had been trying to teach them. In a dangerous galaxy, survival required cooperation. 3. Days later, Lee Hyun stood in the rebuilt council chambers on Vorvak Prime, watching Draknari warriors train alongside human instructors. The former rebels were learning modern combat techniques, studying human military history, and beginning to understand that true strength came not from pride, but from preparation. Do you think it will work? Dr. Park asked, joining him at the observation window. It has to work, Lee Hyun replied. The alternative is too terrible to consider. General Bae Wan-sik's voice came through the ship's communication system, broadcasting from Earth. All Federation worlds, this is General Bae. Today marks the first anniversary of humanity's decision to reveal our true nature to the galaxy. We made that choice not because we wanted to rule, but because we wanted to protect. That choice saved the Federation from the hegemony, but it also created new responsibilities. Lee Hyun activated his own transmitter, adding his voice to the broadcast. The galaxy is more dangerous than we wanted to believe, but it's also more beautiful than we dared to hope. Humans will continue to serve as guardians, but we cannot guard what others will not help us protect. The future belongs to all of us, working together. As the Harmony prepared to depart for its next assignment, Lee Hyun looked out at the mixed fleet of human and alien vessels. They were no longer the gentle giants who had joined the Federation 50 years ago. They were no longer the hidden, warriors who had defeated the hegemony. They were something new, the protectors of a galaxy that was finally learning to protect itself. The age of human secrecy was over. The age of human dominance had lasted only months. Now began the age of human guardianship, and Lee Hyun hoped that future generations would prove worthy of the trust that had been placed in them. In the distance, new ships were already under construction, vessels designed by human engineers, but crewed by mixed species teams. The galaxy was changing, adapting, learning. and for the first time since the hegemony had appeared, Lee Hyun allowed himself to believe that the future might be brighter than the past.